Iran be stopped from being able to potentially build a nuclear bomb? You know, they refuse to stop enriching uranium. They refuse to any major cutbacks in its program. And they have even blocked UN inspectors from a military complex suspected of having worked on potential nuclear explosions. Well, Secretary of State John Kerry is meeting in Vienna with Iranian Foreign Minister Javad Zarif, warning, though, that there are still, quote, serious gaps in those high-level talks, and the deadline for a permanent agreement is Monday. Lisa Daftari, journalist covering the Middle East and a Fox News contributor, joins us now. So, Lisa, they have like 48 hours to go. What do you think is going to happen?
Right, so the deadline is Monday, so we can see one of two scenarios playing out. Either there will be an extension, as many people are predicting, or we're going to go forward with what looks like a very bad deal.
What does it mean if there's an extension?
Well, it means that they're just, well, for Iran, it means a very good thing. It's very good news. They have more time, as what they've wanted, to carry out their nuclear program. Now, let's look at what a good deal with Iran would look like. It's meant to do three things. That's first, to curb their behavior back at home. And we've seen what? An increase in the number of executions in Iran. So we haven't seen that. Curbing in their behavior in the region. And what have we seen? They're still pulling the puppet strings in Syria. And lastly, and most importantly, we'd want them to curb their nuclear activity and to stop their nuclear program from going forward. And we haven't obviously seen that. So an extension would only allow Iran to continue playing out the clock and to continue with their program and their bad behavior.
What would be a bad deal? What are you worried about?
Well, it looks like a bad deal is just surrendering to what Iran has continued to do. Look, Iran can easily say, yes, we agree to X amount of uranium. But what good is that when we don't know what the entire program looks like? This is a facade of a deal.
You know, to talk about uranium enrichment, the United Nations Security Council 6 times has demanded and said stop enriching uranium, and they refuse. So why should we trust anything they say?
Right, and the latest IAEA report came out is that the Iranians are A, not complying with the investigators that are over there trying to figure out the program, and B, that the only thing that's very apparent is that they have taken their program forward. And most importantly, and what people have to really recognize here, is that the human rights abuses, both back at home, the number of executions, and not to mention our 2 Americans still being held there. And our administration has not made that to ask and demand that these Americans be released. That has not been a part.
And those Americans are?
This is Pastor Saeed Abedini, and we have Marine Amir Hekmati. 2 Americans held in the prisons of Iran. And again, the people of Iran, we have over 70 million people, also prisoners to this regime and the human rights abuses going on there. These topics should all be a part of the talks going forward with Iran. They should be all a part of curbing their behavior. And instead, what we've seen is the world, the U.S. and the world community is changing our behavior and accepting what Iran is doing.
Do you worry about any type of concessions at the last minute in order to try to get a deal? They'll say, look, we'll give you X, Y, and Z, and they won't follow through on their side of the bargain.
It actually looks like that's what's going to happen. If this deal is pushed forward before Monday, it looks as though the U.S. and the P5+1, they don't want to upset the deal. They don't want anything to go wrong. So they will not ask Iran for full and open disclosure of their program.
I mean, that's unbelievable, because they're saying, well, we don't want to have a bomb. We want to have it for peaceful purposes. But you can't prove it, because they're not letting the UN inspectors into Parchin, and that's the military facility that supposedly had some research on nuclear explosive devices.
Right. So, we're not asking, and they're not.
How can they have a deal if it's like this, if you only see part of it?
Absolutely. We're not asking, and they're not telling.
So bottom line, you worry most that they will come out of a deal that potentially could still let Iran build a nuclear bomb.
Absolutely. The only winners in this deal will be the Iranian regime. We're seeing a loss for the Iranian people, for the stability and the security of the region and the global community as a whole.
And if Secretary of State Kerry comes out waving the agreement, and the Obama administration says, look what we have, what about Congress? What do they say?
Well, Congress is extremely worried that exactly Kerry and Obama will try to push this forward without congressional approval. But you know what? Congress, there's been bipartisan support to keep sanctions, to keep pressure on Iran, and we're going to see trouble there. We have lawmakers on both sides. Senator Kirk, who I interviewed this week, he's warning Congress. He put together a letter with Senator Rubio warning the president from going forward without congressional support on this.
And finally, because of a Republican Senate, it could be tougher?
It's going to be absolutely tougher. Again, we have bipartisan support. A lot of people, most sane people, think that this is a very bad idea, but we have Secretary Kerry, President Obama opting for a bad deal in favor of just having any deal.
Well, we'll see if there is a bad deal or if there's a good deal. Or even if there's a deal, or maybe no deal, then they'll keep on talking. for a potential deal. Lisa Tatari, it goes on and on. Thank you so much, as always, for your analysis.